Thanks for watching. This is video number 5 of me building an Axial SCX6 Jeep Gladiator. Let's sort of go over what we did so far. Video 1, I stretched the chassis. That's also the easiest part, I guess, of the entire conversion. I also didn't know it would be this much work. So I tried to document as much as possible. Most of the stuff over here I made on my CNC machine. You can also, of course, make it with regular hand tools. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I just decided to unearth my CNC machine again. Also combine it with some stuff that I made on my 3D printer. So my CNC machine, the one that I used in this case, is from Inventables. It's an X-Carve. I've had it for years. The very first project that I did on it was my Yeti XXL back in the day, which was a ton of fun. Also a ton of engineering and really out of my comfort zone. I have grown really attached to the X-Carve and also to Easel, which is the software that is online available for it. Works pretty fantastic. It is kind of a 2D type of a drawing program, but if you know your way around it, it does also provide for tool changes and stuff like that. So I have been experimenting with a ton of those techniques over here in this build. Reason I didn't machine any of this on my Snapmaker, which also has a CNC function, is just because most of the parts are too large. Also, I had the Snapmaker running some prints. So for example, this KC Highlights light bar. This is all these files you can get at my mini factory. These are all files made by Night Customs. So that's this light bar. That's also those Max Tracks, that sand ladder that you see on the side. And also, let me turn it around a tiny bit without hopefully spinning it off the table. Also these rotor packs. All of that stuff is 3D printed. And I think that it goes together with what I CNC'd pretty well. In the second video, you've seen me make a frame for the bed, so I can also run this as kind of like a pre-runner type of deal. Let's see, I made a drawing at some point, a sketch, which you will see a close-up of, with it having a spare wheel in the back, so it looks like this, kind of a bit lighter on its feet, I guess, but I also wanted to have some sort of canopy, so I also sketched this out. Now the eventual canopy looks a tiny bit different. A little bit of Googling, I came across a Jeep Gladiator called Odin with like this type of canopy on the back. The only difference is that one had opening sides and I wanted to have something open, but I decided to have an opening back on mine. The biggest challenge with adding this canopy was the fact that I wanted to be able to add it without having to take the roll cage out. So in the second video, you've seen how I integrated the roll cage in making this structurally sound setup. So I stretched the wheelbase 72 millimeters. I added another, I believe 17 or 19 millimeters to that by pulling the bumper back. So that made the total body stretch 89 millimeters, which of course then makes it 17 millimeters for the rear bumper. And I needed to kind of bridge that gap. Not an easy task, but something that is absolutely doable. You don't want to come up with everything in one go. So just start making some stuff and then see what you can come up with to overcome any type of problems that you might run into. That's also how I engineered this, because I'm absolutely not an engineer, but a bit of creativity goes a really long way. In the video after that one, you have seen how I added these bed sides so I could use the stock fender flares. I also needed to sort of improvise my way around the back. So I decided to use the back of that stock JLU body. So you see that semi-attached at the moment between these two fender plates. This kind of looks like an armored truck. I think it looks cool. In the video after that one, I've showed you how to make these running boards, these catch plates. I'm not sure what these things are called. Made a little Axial logo in those. Also covered up the C-pillars. I made my own roof rack, so this kind of mimics what I have going on these running boards. These running boards are inspired by something that I found as like a real world design. I just switched the design of that around, so I turned it around. What they had machined out of it, and I added some extra detail around the door areas just to make it look a tiny bit more purpose-made. Also needed to figure out a way to make some brackets for that KC Highlights light bar. So we did all of that in the fourth video. I know this has been like a long process, but there's just so much to tell, and I don't want to feel like I left anything out in explaining what I did over here. Something that I've seen is pretty popular is adding your addiction to your truck. I've seen some really dumb shit come by the past couple of months. I've seen people with like bottles of alcohol in the back. Now, if that is if that's your jam, good on you, you know, morning drinking or day drinking on the trails. Not my cup of tea. I've seen people with like vape systems attached to their truck. Literally never seen anything dumber than that. But I think we all share the same addiction when it comes to RC. So what I have done with mine is, or I'm not going to tell you yet actually. I will just show you what I did here first. I made a full frame for that canopy because I needed to machine something, of course, to which I could attach the rest. So in order to do that, you need to come up with a frame. I made that frame from Delrin. So in all of these parts, I used 1/4 inch Delrin. I did that in the frame in the back. I did that for the roof rack. I did that for these running boards. I also did it for those brackets for that light bar. So it only makes sense to also do it for that canopy. So for the canopy, I needed to make 3 struts in order to have the structural integrity that I was looking for. And then tying those together, I kind of used these plates on the sides that I then covered with kind of like a sheet of styrene in the back. So it's all the same materials. This styrene that I used for the sides, I also used that to cover up the canopy. I used 2 different thicknesses just because that's what I had laying around. But you can just see with what's available close to you in your hobby shop or in your hobby store, and then just run with it. I had Delrin available. Delrin is super nice to machine. It's also known as acetal. It's a polymer, and it works really well in these type of mechanical setups as well, just because you can thread screws and bolts into it. Now, what I wanted to do, I explained to you that people run around with their addictions in the back of their truck. I also wanted to have my addiction in the back of my truck, and my addiction is, of course, RC. So I decided that I wanted to have an SCX24 sitting in the back. Now initially this was going to be a deadbolt, but seeing that Axial came out with an SCX24 Gladiator, it only makes sense to accommodate this little truck in the back of my bigger truck. So I found that a fun little touch. Now in order to do this, I made 2 tracks, 2 rails from a Delrin, in which then a drawer sort of slides. Inside that drawer, there's a couple of openings that allow you to sink the wheels of your truck securely into place, so this really isn't going anywhere. And then once you slide it back in, it clicks into place like that, so it kind of locks into place, and then it is supported also by the center bracket of that canopy. You will see a brief footage of me also assembling that canopy. There was a lot of back and forth, a lot of figuring out how I wanted to do this, but overall I'm pretty happy with the result. I think with the canopy it really looks like an Overland type of thing, so nice. I think with those rotor packs, the fuel cap is relocated. I wanted to have some mud flaps too, just because I think that that looks cool. Also once I'm filming this truck, this will look great. I didn't want the canopy to stick out from the rear bumper too much, so it's kind of almost flush with where that rear bumper sits. I will glue E6000 glue or shoe goo this rear piece into place once I have everything completely done up with the paint and everything. So that's still something that I need to do. But apart from that, all of the mechanical stuff and all of the machining stuff is finally done. I also machined some little vents to put behind the fenders over here. I 3D printed a grill insert, also from Night Customs, that I will add later on. So all of those pieces, I've collected those in a box. But for now, this was really my main goal, was to have a Gladiator and then to have an SCX24, well in this case then a Gladiator, sitting in the back. I think it turned out really fun. Pretty hilarious. These wheels, in case you wonder, these are from a Spec RC, so these are not the stock wheels. They do have a pretty similar design, but these are machined aluminum black anodized. They look absolutely fantastic. All of the hardware throughout this entire truck is from Team K&K, so all of it is stainless. Where I have not been yet to replace it with stainless, I will do that once I need to pull the truck in for maintenance and get inside the gearbox. But the majority of it so far has already been replaced. So far I'm really happy. I do have some different tires also coming and some different inserts from a Proline, so I'm going to run their two-stage foams. This truck is really not that heavy. I have weighed it. It's only 4 pounds heavier than the stock version, which I think is not bad at all. And again, I can always convert it. There's 2 screws right behind those C-pillars. If I take those out, there's a hook system attached to that canopy that slots around the frame in the back. And I can take the entire canopy off. I have the roll cage still in place. I can put the spare wheel on, and I have my original design, which I had planned with the spare wheel turning it into like a pre-runner truck. So really cool to have a truck that is that easy to make it shift in appearances. And that also will set out, I think, a tiny bit for well, what I have planned paint scheme wise. This is something that you can consider an Overland truck. It is also something that you could consider a support truck or a maintenance truck or some sort of off-road team, and I guess that's also the theme that I want to go with in painting it. So it is going to be a tiny bit racing inspired. I'm not hating on these red diff covers at all, so I do think that I want to add some red to the paint scheme just to complement whatever it is I'm already working with. I love the Axial SCX6. Let me know if you do as well. If you want to check out the Axial SCX6 or any of the products that I mentioned, like for example those Spec RC wheels, the Team K&K hardware, or the files from James Knight at my mini factory, go check out the links in the video description box. I will make sure that I'll list everything over there. Also, don't forget to check out the other videos in this playlist in case you haven't done that yet. I do think that it's interesting to document as much as I can in building this truck. I know it's absolutely not for everybody. Don't be intimidated by the amount of work that stuff can take. Also, don't be intimidated by the amount of tools that I use. You can, of course, completely simplify it and just do it with whatever it is that you have available to you. Just have an idea, run with it, see what you can create, and have something else than the masses out on the trails. I think that is really important. Thank you so much for watching. Questions, comments, let me know in the comment section, and we'll try to get back to you. And if you have not subscribed yet, please do, and also ring the bell. Take care. See you in the next video. Bye-bye.
Back on.